back to my channel. This is Dom and this is episode 71 of my somewhat regular, semi-regular updates on what I'm working on and some of the games and some of my purchases. So let's take a look. Right, ever onwards with the Epic project. Well, I guess these aren't really Epic figures. These are actually 15mm figures. These are 15mm Peter Pig figures. And they match up quite nicely with Epic scale. They're, again, of the smaller scale, 15mm variety. I quite like these musketeers. They've all got stands, obviously, and I'm going to use them as bases of commanded shot for my 30-year war forces. They paint up very nicely. They've got a surprising amount of detail for a very tiny figure, and were quite easy to do. So, again, as is in keeping with my forces, I'm doing... basically they're largely mercenary forces, so I've kept them fairly generic looking in terms of the style, so potentially they could fight on the Protestant or the Catholic side, but as I say, came out quite nicely and I'm quite pleased with the scale. So that's some more done. And then talking about some more Peter Pig figures that actually I wasn't quite so keen on. These are the cavalry. These are actually more cuirassier figures. Yeah, not so enamoured with these. I don't think they come out quite as well. Sorry, not entirely Peter Pig. This guy here and this guy here are still two on the end of the left hand. Sorry, the two figures on each end of the, as it's going around now, the left hand side of the line are still fist miniatures. You can see they're slightly smaller than the Peter Pigs, but not enough that it's really going to make any difference. And they're far nicer sculpts than the Peter Pig ones, but you know, they'll do fine. They've come out okay. They're cuirassiers, so they've got lots of armour. Again, I've done it, as I mentioned in the previous video, couple of options with the armour, using three different types of armour colour, from sort of gunmetal through to sort of a silvery silvery sort of steel colour, and just then washing over the top just gives you that variety, from a sort of almost black armour through to a very shiny armour, which I quite like, and red sashes because they're Imperial forces. So there you go, another lot done. Then I also thought it was about time I got on with some Swedish troops. So this is a Swedish heavy cavalry formation. Interesting. Well, from reading through the pike and shot rules, they suggest that cavalry should be 3 bases, which just seems far too wide. If you line them out in a great long line, that's enormous. So I'm actually going to only go with 2. I think that reflects better for me the size that I want on the table, so the compromise between, you know, looking good en masse and also having and not having to use too many soldiers, to be absolutely honest. I've also done a little commander with a standard bearer. They're both Epic plastics from Warlords. The heavy cavalry themselves are a mixture of Steel Fist and Epic. It just shows how well they intermingle, really. And I think they are probably the best match, man for man, compared to Epic, if you're looking for a bit of variety in troops. So I'll let you pick out which ones are which, but there are probably about half of them are Steel Fist metals, and about half of them are Warlord plastic Epic figures. So there you go, another unit finished. First, I think, of my Swedish cavalry. So next up, this is a group of Prussian fusiliers in skirmish formation. So they're Perry miniatures, but all the double ups are Perry. The guy at the back is actually a North Star from the Prussian pack for Silver Bayonet. I just repurposed him as a sort of NCO for this group. Now I've double based them, as you can see. The infantry anyway is because I can then use them as the skirmish companies for General d'Armée when I'm playing that. They can also play a role in sharp practice if I'm playing Prussians with those, because I realised I've only got Prussian sort of actually Schützen skirmishers for that. which are green uniforms, and the Fusiliers wore the traditional bluey black uniform of the Prussian infantry. So I've done them as these. I forget which regiment it is, but they got red cuffs and collars and turnbacks, and I just thought they were really cool to do. I really enjoyed doing them. Doing this sort of group of 12 skirmishers plus a leader is kind of just refreshing after all the epic stuff. So I've, kind of like doing them, and they're Perry figures, Perry metals, and so they are awesome. Really good sculpts, really good fun to do, and I think they're quite effective. So that is another unit finished. So next up, some more epics. These are mixed bag, really. We've got on the right, as it comes round as the cavalry, is a unit of Imperial heavy cavalry with lots of pistols and muskets and things like that. They're a mixed bag. Well, certainly the front rank guys, in fact, and a couple of the second rank guys are steel fist metal miniatures, and the other ones are epic plastics. The ones now on the right, coming round, are a unit of more Prussian, more epic heavy cavalry. This time they're Swedish, and these are entirely warlord plastics. Just noticed there's a tuft stuck to one of the bums of one of the horses. Why does it always happen when you do videos? Anyway, 2 more regiments of cavalry, and mentioned before in one of the other videos, I'm planning to do just 2 bases for the cavalry, for a standard cavalry unit. In the rules they seem to suggest 3, but when they're laid out in a line, it's an enormous line, and it just seems unnecessarily big. One might suggest it's just to get them to sell more figures. I don't know, but I've decided to go with just 2 for a standard, which means a small unit will be just 1 and a large will be 3, which to me seems much more logical. In front we've got a small unit of commanded shot. These will probably just be added into others. Now these are interesting. The 3 on the left as they come round are Peter Pig 15 mils, and the ones on the right, the 2 in red, are epic. Now I picked these up on eBay as part of a job lot. Someone was selling off their failed epic project. I picked them up. They just needed a bit of improvement, shall we say. I tried to take them off the bases, but they just would not come on, so they've got rather thicker bases than they should otherwise have, but they fit in quite nicely, and it's more troops for the table in my book. So there you go, some more epic done. And back to 28mm again. These are a pair of Gripping Beast front rank 28mm Dutch-Belgian commanders. I've painted them up to command the brigade that I'm doing of Dutch-Belgians for my Napoleonic collection. I mean, what do you say about front rank figures? I think they're great. They just paint up so nicely. They've got a good amount of detail, but they also seem to have a willingness to take paint, if you know what I mean. They just seem to work for me. They're obviously metals, which gives them a considerable bunk up in my eyes. And yeah, quite happy to use these on the table now. I just sort of went with fairly standard officer uniforms, and I took a bit of artistic license of putting the Dutch orange around the edge of the horsecloth, just to denote the fact they are clearly Dutch-Belgian commanders. So there you go, that's them done. So next up, this is another unit of Swedish heavy cavalry for the 30 Years War epic project. Again, these are entirely epic plastics from Warlords. I did them slightly differently this time. I've been fiddling around with different techniques. So this time, because they were going to be mainly wearing sort of a buff jacket, which is sort of a common theme for the Swedes as I understand it, I undercoated them with a Halford's yellowy sort of sandy colour, and just let that shine come through. I just then painted around it, and then a wash over the top just to create that sort of tan effect, which was saved a little bit of time. Didn't save so much time as it did on the pikeman that I talked about earlier. So yeah, it is what it is, but any bit you can save on time. These figures don't benefit hugely from massive amount of time spent on them, because they're not the best definition. Certainly the cavalry aren't, but yeah, they come out right. And the 3 foot rule always applies for these things. So another unit, as I mentioned earlier, I think I'm doing my cavalry in 2 element bases, so that's a standard regiment, mainly because 3 just seems far too big, and that way I can have 3 for a large regiment and just 1 base if it's a smaller regiment. Seems to make more sense to me, but then I'm not trying to sell figures, so that's where it is. But it's another unit done, and really pleased with the progress. So next up, another epic pike and shot unit. This is painted up as the Swedish black battalia, or black regiment. Yeah, just pretty much the same as all the others, really. Keep it simple, use a bit of wash, and count on the 3 foot rule. These guys I did slightly differently. It got me thinking, if I'm going to do different coloured regiments in the Swedish army, I might as well start with the undercoat that's appropriate. So for these, I undercoated them black, and then that allowed me to leave quite a lot of the jackets. And then I just picked out the odd pair of trousers or jackets or what have you, just to add a bit of different colour to it. But it meant the rest of it could just be left with the black undercoat. And then when the wash went on, it just sort of works out quite nicely, saves a lot of time. I'm doing the same with the red and the yellow regiments as well. Well, I've done one red regiment, and I'm kind of debating whether to do another one, because I actually made it a bit too subtle. Even this one, you can't really tell unless you look very closely that the majority of them are wearing black uniforms. But that's fine. It's 3 foot rule. You're not really going to be able to tell much difference. So I think I'm pretty much there for a game now with the epic pike and shot. So I might have to try and work one of those out in the next few days or weeks. Then finally, for now, back to 28mm. This is a flock of sheep. Yeah, it's a flock of sheep and a shepherd. These are first core resin models. I've had it for ages and ages and ages, and if I'm honest, I kind of lost them. They kind of got lost in a box, and I found them the other day. I thought, right, I'll just knock them up quickly. I mean, they'd just be brilliant for objectives in games, or if you've got to get supplies from one end of the table to another, that sort of thing. I just thought they're a lot of fun. I know a lot of people have got them already, but if you need a flock of sheep for your games, and I guess you can take the shepherd away and it would do pretty much any period you like at all. So yeah, resin, how did I paint them up? Well, they were undercoated grey as normal. I washed them immediately with Earthshade, Acrex Earthshade, to get that browny tint, really slathered that all over. And then I dry brushed up with a light grey, and then a sort of off-white colour. And then just to sort of give a couple, some of them a slightly darker tone, and to do the sort of dirty edging, I went round all the edges of the flock with non-oil, and the sheep I wanted to make a slightly different colour. I used non-oil all over. Picked out their horns with a sort of yellowy, I think it was a sandy colour actually. Yeah, that was that really, dead simples, and quite effective as a feature on the table. So there you go, more done. Yep, so belting my way through the epic and epic scale figures. As you can see, I've now got quite a few regiments of cavalry and infantry, battalia, whatever you want to call them, and I think I'm almost at the point where I can actually have a game now of epic pike and shot. Now, I played loads of pike and shot using 28mm, so no difference there, but I'm really kind of excited about having a go at some really big games, multiple battalia. That's what I'm looking forward to with this epic scale, because that's what smaller scale allows you to do, obviously. So really excited by that. I've also been picking up It's funny, some people clearly have sort of, I suppose it happens with all periods, and funny enough we talked about failed projects on the Plastic Crack the other night, but I've been seeing a few people selling off their sort of started epic project, you know, often some half decently painted pike and shot units or cavalry units, and I've picked a few of those up on eBay and elsewhere, and just sort of been tarting them up where I've needed to, generally just changing the basing so it looks the same as the ones I've already got. So that's also expanded the armies quite considerably. So I've now got, well, about 7 or 8 battalions. In fact, I've got 8 battalions of infantry, pike and shot, and a lot more cavalry. So that's really exciting. So I'm pleased with that. So good. As for games, well, talking about smaller games being a little bit more fun sometimes. I didn't have a game previous week, but this week just went. Jonathan and Paul and I had a game of 50mm black powder Napoleonics, which was fantastic. Really, really enjoyable game. We played a scenario from a scenario book that I talked about some months ago now, called Let's Play. It's called Let's Play Leipzig. It's basically a whole series of scenarios that have been developed for the Leipzig campaign, and we took one of those. It looked fairly manageable, and what I like about this book, it does actually explain how to transfer the numbers that they use into different rule systems. So they have a figure count on the battalions, which then they equate to a regular large or small black powder unit, which is great. And you can take the stats from the books anyway. The only thing wasn't quite right was the time scales. So this was a 20-turn game. Now we're lucky if we get 4 or 5 turns in a club night by the time we've had a chat with people and got the figures out and put them all away and what have you. But generally that's enough within a black powder game to actually sort of have a pretty shrewd idea about where the game is going. And that's what happened with this one. I think it was scheduled to be 20 turns. I think we did 4.5, 5. I think we just about to start turn 5, and it was fairly clear that it was going to be a French victory. Very tough. Sorry you haven't watched this, but you probably will have done because it's probably gone live before I post this. If it is, I'll put the link here. But it was a really good game. Really enjoyed it. I played with Paul, taking the Allied forces. Jonathan, true to nature, true to his nature, was playing the defensive French, sitting on a hill, and we were very aggressive. I thought from the beginning, because we didn't have much time, we were just going to go all out for it, and we really went for it, Paul and I, and we nearly broke him, but just not quite. Nearly doesn't win you the game, does it? And as always the case, these things, it's what we worked out afterwards. It came down to just one little charge that didn't go in. I'd forced a unit on the very extreme of the French line to go into square, but with my cavalry, and I tried to charge it with a unit of landwehr, and they refused. And as it turned out, if I had have got in and beaten that square, which you would hope you would do, that would have probably been enough to have shaken or broken that command on that right flank of the French army, which would have given us somewhere to push. As it was, they didn't go in. We shook a couple of units in the middle and on that flank, but not enough to break the command, and in turn our commands were broken. So such is the joy of the game, right? As it is in real life, I guess. So that was fun. Not going to have a game for a couple of weeks because I'm away again for a couple of weeks up in Ludlow. Really looking forward to that, going up to the Ludlow Food Festival. Yeah, as if I need any food. So I'm looking forward to that, but that should be nice, especially because the weather is really good at the moment. Might be able to tell the noise is a little higher in here in the boot room because I've got all the windows and doors open because it is a bit moist today. Anyway, purchases. Been fairly restrained for me anyway. I talked about these fellas a while back, but they hadn't turned up, so Magister Militum, some of their English Civil War figures turned up. I've got some dragoon holders, horse holders, a couple of cavalry units, and a unit of sort of villagers with pitchforks and scythes and things, which I thought would be fun. Scale wise, they appear to match in very nicely with Epic, so that's good, and again gives me some variety for the painting. So that's kind of nice, and they're not bad figures. They're not the very best. I don't know whether you can see that. There we go. I don't know whether that's showing. They're not the very best, but they're okay. I'm relatively happy with them. So that's them done. But I couldn't, oh, I did also get from them, these have been undercoated, but I haven't actually done anything with them. They also sell a range of 15mm Renaissance English Civil War type buildings. I've got a few, but I thought a couple more would be useful, so these were quite reasonable. So I picked these up. These are undercoated and will be painted up fairly soon. Other than that, I also couldn't resist. It was payday, and I decided I had to get some more Steel Fist 15mm, so I've got some more. I think these are Royalist Cavalry. I've got a couple of packs of those. ECW H12 and H4. Another H12. Yeah, these were the two. These were the two sort of Royalist cavalry, heavy cavalry, which I think would be great for either side in the 30-year war. I also got a unit of, or group of Royalist officers, which you can do for commanders for both sides, and I can't remember what these are. Another unit of men-at-arms, I think, of men-at-arms, of heavy cavalry. So that gives me 10, 20, 30 plus the officers, getting up for another 40 cavalry, which is, I think I've now got more than enough cavalry for the project. I just need to paint through. Other than that, I also picked up a whole load more really useful boxes. I use these extensively for storing the figures, also for transporting them. I think these are the A4 ones, is it? Can't remember the size these are. 4.5 litre? 4 litre boxes, which I think on the whole are very good for pretty much everything. If you've got something with a little bit bigger spears, then you might want to go the next size up. But these are fantastic, and they are great for storage because you can just stack them. And what I increasingly do is I will stack sort of, well, I have a couple of these spare that I'll then load up with the figures to take to the club, pack it with bubble wrap and what have you to stop them moving around, and you know, a couple of these will probably be the army I need for the club, which is brilliant. Saves me having to take unnecessary figures. I can just take exactly what I need if they aren't already in the box as I want. So that's that. That was all the purchases. Yeah, so very restrained. A couple of books on the way, but I'll show them next time on episode 72, which is extraordinary. But other than that, I think that's a lot. I'm just going around thinking, is there anything I've missed? No, I think that's a lot. So it's been a fun couple of weeks. Not so much gaming again. You know, summer's still here, and well, certainly is today. Summer's still here, so gaming's been a little bit less as it normally will. But I'm planning to go along to Naptember, which is a game that one of the guys on the Plastic Crack community is organising in Bury St Edmunds at the end of the month. We're going to take along a brigade of infantry or Napoleonic cavalry to play a massive black powder game, which should be fun. If you want to get along, check it out. If you're a member of the community, and well, why not if you're not? But if you are, check it out, because it's if you're anywhere near that part of the UK, it could be a fun day out. I think Martin is going. I think Miller's going. I think Robin's going. A number of other people are going from the club, from the community, so it should be fun. I'm just not sure which force to take along. Do I take the Swedes? Do I take the Württembergers? Do I take something completely different? Do I do something really off the wall, like take the Dutch-Belgians? I don't know. Or even the Spanish. Gosh, that'd be something. We'll see. It may be a last-minute decision. It's going to be a bit of a free-for-all, apparently. No particular fixed period, no particular theatre. I think kind of part of me thinks I'd wish it was set in a particular period, and you know, we were all allocated a side and we could just take along something that was relevant. But I see why he's doing it, and I think it'll make an interesting game if nothing else. So, and it's always fun when you're rolling bones with a whole load of mates, so that'd be good. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you're doing well, hope you're staying well, hope you're staying cool if you're in the northern hemisphere at the moment, and I hope you're getting some gaming in. And also, the World Cup rugby starts this weekend. Oh my goodness, when am I going to have time to watch that? Mind you, I'm an England fan, I probably don't want to watch it. Come on, Ireland. Never thought I'd say that. Anyway, stay safe, stay well. I'll see you again soon. This is Dom, signing out.